Hey folks, I'm here to talk about this Blood Artisan's Curious guide. You might have seen one of my videos about, the Pit 100 clear, for example, that I've done with it. Here I want to explain how this build actually works. So this entire build revolves around casting Bone Spirits using Blood Artisan's Curious, as you can see here. Notice, Bone Spirit isn't anywhere on my bar, but I managed to have 26 ranks of Bone Spirit. So the way I am casting and doing the majority of my damage is by walking over and picking up these blood orbs. And then a little spirit comes out. Now, the number you saw, 8 million or whatever, that was before modifiers. Post modifiers, it'll be close to 50 million. But we actually don't walk to pick up these orbs. You see, where is it? There we go. Gore Quills. This aspect makes it so that when I cast Blood Lance, it'll automatically pick up these blood orbs. So if I just shoot the wall over here, you'll see that the blood orbs are consumed. And then a little spirit comes out. So this quality of life is what makes this build work. If I had to manually pick up these orbs, it would be atrocious. So, blood orbs, how do we get them? Well, the easiest way to get them is Embalmer. This is an aspect that when you consume a corpse, you have a chance to spawn a blood orb. So, if I were to just manually cast a single corpse explosion, I'd have a 45% chance to create a blood orb. But we can do better. If we combine this aspect with Black River, that means every time we go to corpse explosion, we blow up a bunch of corpses, and up to 5, which gives us about 2.25 blood orbs per cast. And it's worth noting that Corpse Explosion has an extra fast cast time. So you can cast it with enough attack speed significantly faster than Blood Lance. Like my Blood Lance does like 2 a second, my Corpse Explosion does 3 a second. And I know that's a lot of haste, but we have around 94% attack speed. We blast. So we need corpses. How do we get corpses? Army of the Dead. Now you'll notice it has a 45-second cooldown, but because we're working with blood orbs, we can slot in Fast Blood, which reduces the cooldown of our ultimate every time we pick up a blood orb. So when we Blood Lance with Gore Quills and pick up 3 Blood Lances, that's the cap per Blood Lance, we reduce our ultimate's cooldown by 7.5 seconds, basically giving us endless Army of the Dead. So, Army of the Dead creates a bunch of corpses by sending in these explosive skeletons. Oh, it also resurrects my skeletons. Let me get rid of them for a second. So, all these explodey boys leave a corpse. And if I just blow them up, and then see 14 seconds, I'm going to cast a Blood Lance. Bam, it's almost done. So, basically, even without my regular skeletons, I can just keep casting. Oh, crap, I can actually explode them. And there, it's back up. And you started seeing those bone spirits go out. So that's the basic cycle. We round out our build by throwing in some skeletons. We've got the Reapers with the chance to form a corpse, because we need all of the corpses. And we have Shadow Mages because this gives us bonus damage. I run extra Reapers and extra Shadow Mages on my boots, so this gives me 15% damage, thanks to this imprint. We also run that many skeletons because you'll notice I have a bunch of ranks in curses. So my Decrepify I have 6 ranks in, and I even have the improved version, which gives me more cooldown reduction. You see, it's one thing to have enough cooldown reduction to keep Army of the Dead up all of the time with Blood Orbs, but in practice, you're running around dungeons, you're moving away from your pile of corpses. You might not get perfect looping of army unless you have a couple sources of redundancy for cooldown reduction. So we run Abhorrent Decrepify, but it's not on our bar, just like Bone Spirit's not on our bar. The way we get Decrepify on enemies to, give us this damage reduction, to give us a cooldown reduction, and to give us a significant amount of damage, 20%, is we run Blood Moon Breaches. This keeps Decrepify off our bar. And that's critical because it lets us take Blood Mist, which is the best survivability tool in the game. This just says, I am immune to everything for 3 seconds. And because we have some overpower triggers in our build, it cools itself down whenever we cast Blood Lance a couple times. So there's a lot of looping synergy here. Now, our Blood Lances themselves don't do a lot of damage. I did get a little bit of overpower, so they do, every 4 attacks, maybe every 3 attacks, depending on the timing of Gore Quills. They'll do an extra, 5 million to 8 million total on the overpowered lance. And that's something. It's actually enough that it's worth putting ranks into Blood Lance. I've tried with it, I've tried it without it, I've tried going a bunch of different ways. Turns out the current build I have, which invests a little bit into overpower, works, even though overpower itself on necromancers is terrible. Like, oh my god, I have an entire write-up of how this is just bad. But we take it because our actual damage is Blood Artisan's Curious. So we're throwing out, 5-8 million damage here and there with Blood Lance, and then this thing goes and says, I do 50 million damage every second. So, it's still something. It's just not as much. And, our skill tree is pretty simple. You get the 2 points just to move to the next tier. We throw points in perfectly balanced. This is a really good neck enchant if you can get it. Put lots of points in Blood Lance. We get Hewed Flesh because we need more corpses. And what's worth noting is we don't take the overpowered Blood Lance. This is kind of terrible. This 15% attack speed is just, it's like chef's kiss, just so good. You want it. You will feel the difference immediately. Even when you already have, I think I have 80% moves or attack speed without it, and that even that little 15% is huge. Moving down, we get Blood Mist. I should probably explain something. You see how everything has a bunch of ranks in it? I got Shaco. This gives me 4 ranks of everything. You can get this by crafting, so I'm actually putting it in a build guide because pretty much anyone can get access to it if you do some tormented runs, but that's for another day. So, where was I? Here we go. Blood Mist. I have 1 rank in this, plus 4 from Shaco. I have 1 rank in Enhanced Blood Mist, and then I'm actually skipping these 2. They don't matter. I have enough corpses that the 3 extra corpses from Blood Mist is such a drop in the bucket. Don't need it. I have Spiked Armor here. I put 3 ranks in it because I don't have armor on my gear. So the only place I can get armor is on my neck, and I have skulls in all my gear. And my Paragon handles resistances. So the only reason I hit armor cap is because of you have to put an armor enchant on your neck. It's the only spot that fits unless you don't have Shaco yet. But once you get it, which you will get it, you're going to lose and have to put armor here. Or you're going to lose a bunch of armor that you could put on your neck. Alright, so back to the tree. We're skipping these because we're so low on points. we're putting 2 ranks in Grim Harvest, not 3. You can put 3, but you generally need to be corpse explosioning, because each corpse explosion with Black River, remember, does 5 corpses that are consumed. So with 4 essence times 5, that's 20 essence. Plus whatever essence resource generation options you have. And you have some built in from willpower, and you'll have additional from Shaco when you get it, the Harlequin Crest. So this 20 becomes around 25, and I'm usually, like, whenever I go to cast Corpse Explosion, I usually have to cast it twice. So by not running 3 points in this, I can actually start telling how many corpses are on the ground by looking at my essence bar. So if my essence bar is full, or is like way down here, it means I'm not casting Corpse Explosion enough. If my essence bar is full, it means I have been casting too many Corpse Explosions, and there's probably too many Blood Orbs. And this bit of feedback is super helpful, because you'll see when I go to the damage section, I can't see shit with this build. I kind of love that in terms of the numbers, but it's hard to tell. And the corpse limit is like 18. It's way too low. It needs to be like 30. So you have to have alternative ways to tell how many corpses are actually there. Otherwise, you're just kind of firing blind, and that's not good. Got a couple extra ranks in Fueled by Death. Just, I've got 3, and then I've got extra from Black River. Down here, I only have 1 rank in this, 1 rank in this, 1 rank in this. And then I got 4 from Shaco, and then an additional 1 from Blood Moon Breaches. I'm also putting up Iron Maiden. This is a joke. Don't just ignore it. Amplify Damage, I put 3 ranks in because it's, it says damage. And everything is cursed. I run about 94% attack speed currently when I'm fully buffed. So that everything's always cursed, even though it's a 7% chance on boot or on my pants. Moving on, the main talents that matter here, or points, is Bone Spirit. I currently am running Ghastly Bone Spirit because I am 5 skill points short, or crit points short of hitting 100% crit chance during Grasping Veins. But once I finish masterworking, I'm going to take this point out because I'm going to gain an additional 5 crit by the time I'm done masterworking. So these 2 points are going to be recovered. Evulsion is what my neck that I was able to get landed on. You either take a necklace with Evulsion or Imperfectly Balanced, because both of them buff your Bone Spirit. I would have preferred Imperfectly Balanced, but the necklace I had the option of had Evulsion, and I'll take the reduced damage on Blood Lance to get better, to get the other options the necklace had. It had a greater affix health and move speed, and I didn't have to roll it, so 10. Tides of Blood, this just helps our lances do less than trivial damage. These are not really mandatory, but it's just kind of nice to have extra damage. And you'll notice I don't even have the extra ranks in Corpse Tendrils. I used to run Corpse Tendrils generate additional Blood Orbs, but that only helped me in pits clearing trash, and my trash clear speed is actually really high compared to some of the other, meta builds. But my boss clear speed is where I really suffer. So this doesn't help me on bosses when there's only 1 target, and I run a greater affix chance on hit cause vulnerable with 94% attack speed, and Gore Quills hitting 4 times per Blood Lance, so base attack plus 3 Gore Quills. Everything's always vulnerable, so I don't need this point. I don't need this slow. Everything's pretty much slowed by Decrepify from my minions, and so I just don't even have the point here, and that lets me put those 3 points I save here are why I have Tides of Blood. The same goes with Corpse Explosion. Even though I'm running Black River, it was hard to get Corpse Explosion to do relevant damage with everything else I need to put on this build. My Corpse Explosion, when I was putting full ranks into it, was getting like 2.5 million, and when like my Bone Spirit's doing 50 million, a 2.5 here or there doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. It's trivial. So I can save 3 skill points by just not going down the tree. And, you know, that's another reason I've got up to Tides of Blood. Otherwise, you always take Avulsion fully. You can take Compound Fracture, but that's like kind of meh, because its uptime is kind of low. You don't cast a lot of spells. It is nice for pretty burst pictures, but eh. Necrotic Carapace is how I get and stay fortified. Army of the Dead creates 35 corpses. So this just keeps me, this says you're fortified all the time forever. Because between Army of the Dead rolling all the time and Reapers producing more corpses and Hewed Flesh, I'm just fortified instantly. We got Army here, just all the way down. We got Inspiring Leader, just for the extra crit. And we run Rathma's Vigor. Now, there is some debate that if Rathma's Vigor is the real best choice, because Serration does lead to bigger numbers, but the frequency drops, because Rathma's Vigor, the overpower trigger is, the reason this is good is it combos with the Loop of Rathma's Chosen, which gives us 50% attack speed. And the alternative would be to swap this for Serration or Requiem to make Ossified Essence do a bit more. And long term, that might be the right play. But in practice, this feels a lot better to pilot. So for now, I'm still recommending you use Rathma's Chosen and Rathma's Vigor as your keystone and the aspect that goes with it. Keystone, capstone, key passives. There we go. Paragon. We have a 6-board setup. All of this is on max roll. But basically the only glyph that we invest anything more than the minimum of is Essence. It's just like, 19.8 additive damage per rank, and it's easy to get and path through while we're going through our first board. The general concept here is we take every single health node that is in the Paragon tree, period. Because health, max life, scales Blood Artisan's Curious. It didn't used to. So if you're like, it doesn't scale, it's just based on max life, it's based on total life. It's, nope. I have tested this, I have a video of it, it's unlisted, but it's in the Sanctuary Discord. It scales. I don't know what the ratio is, but it's a lot. So grabbing max life not only improves Blood Artisan's Curious, it also gives us survivability. Because I got 61k HP unbuffed, and if I pop elixirs, I can start surviving tier 100 Lilith mechanics. The Lilith mechanics, with the amount of damage reduction I run, take about 74,000 health to survive. You'll survive with 1 HP, but you'll survive. And currently, fully buffed, I can hit around 85,000 health. So, it's a lot. And the way Gore Quills will, when you fire a Blood Lance, the Gore Quills take a second to activate. They take like half a second each to activate. So you're getting these constant trickles of like, it's 15% of your health max life base, and then there's some, you have like a 50% modifier on healing. So it ends up being like 25-35% of your health. You're just getting multiple times per second. So my health bar, when something hits me, will sometimes drop, and then it's immediately full, and then a second later I'm fully fortified. So this build is surprisingly tanky as long as it's not CC'd. Anyways, we take every max life because that's bonus. We take a lot of these resist all elements because this is what allows us to run and get armor capped in spite of not running armor on any of our affixes other than the temper on our necklace. So I love this glyph, Corporeal, because move speed, it's damage, and it's giving us a bunch of resist all elements. And because we get resist all elements here, we get resist all elements here, and we get resist all elements here, we're just done. We don't have to think. We don't have to think about diamonds. We don't have to think about resistances. That part of the game is just solved for us. And I mean, I could go break this down more, but it's pretty obvious. We get things that buff our damage. We get a little bit of investment in overpower. These are optional. You could actually take this point out and like put it into somewhere else that does damage if overpower is not working for you. And we get the free damage from Flesh Eater. This is always up. Other builds, this falls off because they're not constantly casting Corpse Explosion. For us, one Corpse Explosion pops this because we have Black River, which is a nice little benefit. And I'm only going to cover things that might make less sense. We have Undaunted for some extra damage reduction rather than like more damage we could put here. And everything else should be pretty straightforward once you understand that we're going for all the max life and all the resistances solved from Paragon. Alright, now I'm going to show this in action a little bit. I think I've covered everything in terms of the build and why we do it. If you look at my Paragon trees, I actually put like this page in and then this page, and you might want to flip those, but that's whatever. Make sure when you're putting the Paragon board. Anyway, I'm not going to explain all that. Anyways, so I'm going to show this build in action. So, walking into a pit 100, I might not have any minions. As soon as I pop Army of the Dead, oh, and yes, I'm using WSD movement. You can bind it, and it's amazing. So, my keybinds are a little screwy because, or they look screwy, but this is still, you know, Q and 1 both do this. 3 is this. This is tilde. It's the button to the left of 1. My left click is also the number 2. This is another button on my mouse, and it's number 4. So I can choose how I hit it based on, you know, WSD and some other things. And now we got our minions up. And I can start Corpse Exploding to get Blood Orbs. I'm basically going to hold down right click, and I'm going to keep holding down right click while I'm pushing other buttons. So I'm never stopping damage. I'm just going to left click at random to keep Grasping Veins up. And in between all these numbers, you're going to see these. If you pause it right when one of these little spirits comes out and hits, you're going to see numbers. I saw 33 million there. I think Grasping Veins fell off. That was 52 million, 44 million, 44 million, 50 million, 41, 43. So this is the general pace. And with some boss fights, you'll see me moving around. Like, I'll take like steps constantly, just kind of strafe. And this is so when the ghost spawns on me, I'm already moving out of position so that I don't even have to think to dodge it. I've already moved through my minions, and the fireballs coming from that echo are just going to hit my minions rather than me. So sometimes I get into situations where there's just a ton of blood orbs. Oftentimes if I'm kiting a boss a lot, I don't have time to lance it, but I'll try to still pop Corpse Explosions during the Army of the Dead. And sometimes I'll just get behind, and I can always, make sure my buffs are up, and then go in with a Blood Mist and grab just like a ton of orbs and do, a couple 100 million real quick. But yeah, this is the build. It's lots of numbers, so I love it. One of the mistakes I made right there, if you look at Army of the Dead, it has a bar that goes over it. When you cast it again before this bar is over, you do not get a second instance of Army of the Dead, to my knowledge. What ends up happening is you just refresh the duration. So casting it before it's up can be a significant DPS loss because you're wasting time on a cast that could be another Blood Lance. It could be another Corpse Explosion. Yeah, so that's the Blood Artisan's Curious Army of the Dead build. It's a lot of fun to play. I don't think it's an S tier build. I think it's very much an A tier build. I think Blizzard needs to make some significant changes to make Blood more viable. Such as, I think this Gorequills aspect should be in the skill tree. This should not be an aspect. This 50% chance to consume a Blood Orb, in higher tier content, you never have time to go and just like walk over and pick up these Blood Orbs. It feels bad for both Blood Lance and Blood Surge. So I think Gorequills should replace this never used skill. So, every time you cast 1, 2, or 3 Blood Orbs should be consumed. So 3 ranks of this would give you, 3 Blood Orbs consumed per cast. Other major problems with this that Blizzard needs to address. Rathma's Vigor is capped at 1 instance of cooldown reduction per Blood Orb, even if you heal for double the amount here. So if I heal for 16,000 life, I still only get 2 seconds of cooldown reduction from Rathma's Vigor. And that's especially bad because if you look, if I cast this one Blood Lance, the others take a moment to fire. So even if I get maximum cooldown reduction per Blood Orb, I only get a automatic overpower Blood Lance every 4th Lance. It should be every 3 because, I just overpowered a Lance. My next one gives me 6 seconds of cooldown reduction. My next Lance gives me 6 seconds of cooldown reduction. That's 12. I should be overpowering automatically on my 3rd Lance. But since Gorequills takes a moment to fire off, by the time I fire my 3rd Lance, the second Gorequills isn't done firing, so it hasn't consumed the orb. So I fire the 3rd Lance, and it doesn't automatically overpower. And this is a major, major issue with Blood's damage that Blizzard needs to address. The healing coming in, the trickle healing from Gorequills, because it's staggered, I don't want to get rid of that. But I think for the purposes of Rathma's Vigor, it should count the Blood Orb as consumed the moment you fire the Blood Lance, so that we can overpower every 3rd Lance. This would be like a 35% or 33% increase in damage for Blood immediately, and it's basically a bug fix. It's not even like a buff. It should just work that way. So I would remove the trickle healing if I could just get the blood lances to work every 3rd Lance. Additionally, I think when you auto overpower a Blood Lance, it should auto overpower the Gorequills, because that would be cool, and it would make overpower once again a relevant damage modifier. And if it's in the skill tree and it works with both Blood Lance and Blood Surge, because Blood Surge definitely needs a way to collect Blood Orbs without having to move. This is bad. And for the future of this build, one of the things that should work Let me find Kuro's Embrace. This item should actually replace Black River in this build. Because if I equip Blood Surge, actually I don't even need to do anything there. Let me just slam this onto my bar real quick. If I equip Blood Surge, I can actually use Blood Surge as my generator. I do need to put 1 extra rank in Grim Harvest. And this build, without Corpse Explosion on the bar, works. I do want to switch to Cold Mages for just the smoothing it out. I just need to hit my first Blood Surge. Okay, there we go. And now, I can just sit here and spam and consume the orbs constantly. And this would be amazing if this works. Blizzard, please. And please allow Blood Surge to also proc off of Gore Quills and make, even if you don't put Gore Quills in the skill bar. Because, good God, this would be amazing. This item needs to be fixed. It needs to say core skills and not Blood Surge. It needs to say max life instead of maybe core damage or overpower damage. Like, you can't not have max life. I'm sorry. The lucky hit heal is also pointless, but I understand, you know, uniques not being too perfectly statted. And basically any gloves need to have attack speed or crit to be valid. So that's the other points with this. So Blizzard, please give this max life. Please give this attack speed or crit and change it to core skills so that it can be used specifically in a build like this where you're using both Lance and you're using Blood Surge as a replacement for Corpse Explosion, because that's just cool. Also make it so that Blood Surge can, when Blood Surge procs Paranormal Blood Surge, this should work if Kuro's Embrace hits the mob. So, yeah. Anyways, I'm talking at a wall. If you're watching this long, I'm sorry. I've just been rambling about, you know, problems with this build and how they could be better in case some, you know, Colin or somebody good on the team reads my shit, watches my shit? I don't know. Anyways, thanks for watching. I hope this explained some of why this build works, and have a good day.